are followed by everyone. A language evolves over thousands of years, really, and it becomes just customary to do things a certain way. So all I can say, Nam, is that it's a convention. It's what people do, but there's no rational reason why. And English is a language, I don't know about Thai, but English is a language where there are many conventions that are inconsistent. You know, you do it one way one time and another way another time. That's an example of a dependent clause. Now, last week we discussed when we use because and because of. The correct use of because, the appropriate use of because of. Because and because of are, because is a word, because of is a phrase, because it's two words. We use because and because of to introduce dependent clauses. Last week we said because the air pollution is bad, we should try to stay inside. So because the air pollution is bad, that's a dependent clause. Now if we put the clause at the end, we would say because of. We should stay inside as much as possible because of the air pollution. Yeah. It just, ways to introduce the clause. But we're going to take up when to use when. The word when we combine it with the present tense, will tell us about our habits. So, this is what I do. When I have a lot to do, I just make a list. The list helps me remember, helps me to prioritize what's important, what's not important. So, this is the clause when I have a lot to do. By itself, the clause is incomplete. We need the rest of the sentence. Without the clause, the main part of the sentence, that's a complete sentence. But we add the clause, now we have more meaning. I make a list when I have a lot to do. I make a list when I have a lot to do. See, the meaning is the same. You can do it either way. But because we put the clause at the beginning of the sentence, we stick a comma there. Because the clause is at the end of the sentence, we do not put a comma there. Okay? That's when we use when. Now, you can also use when if you want to talk about something that's happened in the past. So, we combine when with a verb in past tense, and it tells us that something has already happened. They were sleeping when the fireworks started. Okay? Again, this is a complete sentence. We add the clause. Now we know that the fireworks started while they were sleeping. So they were sleeping when the fireworks started. We can put it at the beginning of the sentence. When the fireworks started, they were sleeping. Either way, the meaning is the same. So we use when with the present tense to talk about a habit that we have. When I have difficulty going to sleep at night, I just read a book and then I'll fall asleep. So when I have difficulty sleeping at night, I read a book. So I'm taking when, combining it with present tense to tell you about a habit that I have. Now here we're using when with past tense to talk about something that's already happened. We can also introduce a dependent clause using while. While we use in combination with the past continuous tense. The past continuous tense tells us about something that is happening at the present time and also something that has happened in the past. So while they were sleeping, the fireworks started. What that word while tells us is that the fireworks started, they were sleeping. The fireworks started, and they're still sleeping. So the fireworks started, past tense, sleeping, present tense, but it still is going on. So while is just a little bit different meaning than when. While tells us, well, when we use when, what we mean there is that the fireworks started when they were sleeping, but we don't know whether they're still sleeping or whether they're up and awake now. But when we use while, what this tells us is the fireworks started in the past while they were sleeping, and they're still sleeping. So they were sleeping, the fireworks started, they're still sleeping. Past continuous. More words to introduce dependent clauses. After and before. But with after, we use after to show that something happened before something else in the same sentence. So here, after I watch the news, I eat my dinner. It's a routine I have. After I watch the news, I eat dinner. So this says that I watch the news, then I eat dinner. One event happens before the other one. Now we can also take after, put it together with the present tense and also a future tense to talk about future plans. So after we finish class, I will eat lunch. So this is present tense. This is future tense. So after either example, here or here, after is what we use to introduce a dependent clause to show the order of events when we're talking about two events in the same sentence. We know that one thing is going to happen after something else. And as with all dependent clauses, we can put the clause at the beginning of the sentence, or we can put the clause at the end of the sentence. Either way. If we put it at the beginning, we insert the comma. And we have before. Before is another word we use to introduce dependent clauses. And again, we use before to show us the order of events in the sentence. So, I drink a cup of coffee before I come to class. What we know is that the coffee happens before class. We can use before with the present tense and the future tense, just like after, to show a sequence of events. Before I return to the USA, I plan to visit Angkor Wat. So I want to be sure to go there before I go home. I could also say, after I visit Angkor Wat, I will return to the USA. both before and after, tell us the order of events in a class. And one more word to introduce a dependent clause. We can use if to introduce a dependent clause. We combine if with the present tense to talk about something that might happen in the future. There is a possibility that something will happen in the future. Here's an example. If it begins to rain, if it begins to rain, I plan to go inside. So this clause tells us we don't know if it's going to rain or not. There's a possibility it might rain. If it does, then I'll go inside. So we use if in the future tense to give us the meaning that there is something that has the possibility of happening in the future. I will go inside if it begins to rain. So we have a lot of different ways now to introduce dependent clauses. I want to try to practice this, and then let's try a couple of practice items, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and we'll practice some more. Okay? Yes, Nam.
Would you please explain when we use when and why again?
When and while. Okay.
What is the difference?
Actually, the difference is so slight. It is so slight